Is this an NAB day?
It's a post NAB day.
Hmm.
Well, the convention, I thought went very well, and I had some surprises when I was there, especially doing some presentations. I was noticing in the audience when I was giving presentations, there were a lot more young people than I've ever seen before.
That's a good thing, right?
I think so. At the SBNS, where I gave two full day presentations, and we had lots of speakers. The average age was around 35, which I thought was really different than before and really good.
There was somebody that looked a lot like Barry at the NAB on Transmission Talk Tuesday.
I wonder who that could have been.
It was kind of funny because for those of us who know you and other people on Zoom, it's a headshot. And all of a sudden we're watching people in tennis shoes and pants and backpacks, and it's a whole new thing.
Well,
Is my level too hot?
no, you're fine, David.
Thank you. By the way, Barry, a lot of people walked up to me and said that they've seen me on the BDR with you. So it does get out. They were telling me that they like 4 or 5 people were telling me that they watch it on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, we definitely have a much bigger run than a lot of the even a lot of the SBE chapters these days.
Then I'll start.
That works.
Barry, didn't you say you put 15,000 steps on your iPhone?
Oh boy, that was Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, I don't think I could do that anymore. You must be in good shape. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
You could wear out a pair of shoes there.
I was averaging around 18,000 a day, and I ended up getting new inner soles twice. And I was telling someone that whoever has the idea to go into the NAB show and get a booth and just sell like Dr. Scholl's inner soles would make a fortune.
if you join the union.
And can deal with Freeman.
If you hurry up, they might not have a union for that item yet.
But you know, the real annoying thing, Ken, when you go to all the receptions and things that were inside the convention center, all they're serving is fried food. And they're wondering why there's not longevity in this business.
Well, in the old days, when they all had hospitality suites, a lot of people must have died in, DWIs.
Well, there were quite a few hospitality suites, and there were. I was noticing that the hospitality suites are more limited than they used to be, and more of the hospitality was in the 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock hours, because they want people at the booths, because I guess they don't want to get the separate rooms anymore.
That and reliability.
So, what is it you want to cover? Just what we just talked about there, or the whole composite MPX over IP thing?
So we have Tony Fugely from
Tony?
WorldCast Systems and their new products, which include.
I guess Barry's doing some editing.
Well, I just got back, so I really don't know how this is going to work. And I can see there's a problem that I'm going to have to deal with this because several of these are sideways, and I don't see any way to rotate them.
What's your main program, Barry?
Tried VLC just now and Windows Media before that.
I think there is a rotate in VLC. I'm not exactly
Well,
sure.
that's what I'm looking for. I'm not finding it yet.
What kind of phone do you have?
Oh, it's an iPhone.
Oh, I don't know nothing about iPhone.
Barry, if it's an iPhone, I hate to say this and sound really stupid, but slap it.
Mm.
It actually works.
Somebody told me it's a Facebook phone.
That the correct iPhone hand gesture, the slap.
Hello, Ed.
Hey there.
Yeah, you would think it'd be a pretty simple thing to find, but
Ed, where are you with the palm tree behind you?
In my office on the second floor of my house.
Oh, okay.
Freeman Decorating comes in and sets this up for me. No. Yes. It's one of a choice of backgrounds I have. I usually have the rainbow looking from New Jersey into Manhattan, but not this week.
This one's much better.
well, this could be this could be a little bizarre. Well, it's top of the hour, so I guess we should get started. It is how shall I say this? It is a long way from West Hall to Central Hall. I didn't want to talk about South Hall, but man, oh man, hiking back and forth to those halls was just amazingly difficult.
That's why they put the loop in between.
And that wasn't very good, David, because it didn't take you very long to realize that you wanted to be on the east end of West Hall, for instance, but the loop takes you to the west end. And the same thing goes with Central, because North Hall is under construction. Then they pull you down almost to South Hall, and then you have to walk your way back.
That's all I tried.
It was not well planned out, and when they laid out where the booths would be, they really didn't pay attention to what people were going to have to put up with. Just to get to the concession area in Central Hall was a huge hike, because you had to go across what was the old parking lot, then up and across and through the top of the old North Hall, and then down. It was just not a whole lot of fun.
That and try to get from the West Hall to the South Hall when you're trying to go to the Rodian Schwartz booth. And so you had, I took the loop. That was a mistake because they drop you off in the back of South Hall, and then you have to walk through all these empty halls to finally get there. And then you realize that on the second floor of the South Hall where Rhodey is, there was maybe 10 booths, and that's it.
Well,
You gotta wonder who
that's
they
what I
pissed
was
off.
saying. They did not set out this logistically very well. And if you look at the map that you could get, about the only thing I can say is it was an interesting ride through the little tunnel. I did it once. That was enough. And frankly, it was easier to walk most of the time.
You're not going to buy a Tesla?
Not a tube, not an underground tube.
You
Tesla.
gotta wonder what happens when one of
Anyway,
those
Sunday
Teslas
morning
gets
was the
flat.
Nautel presentation, and they took in some 300 people this year, large group. The NAB attendance has been posted at about 61,000, which is a lot less than it used to be. Approaching 100,000 or so, 90, 100,000. So it's about 2/3 of what it was most recently. But the Nautel had about 300 folks, and they actually started the first hour with more generic broadcast concerns and then filtered into Nautel equipment and tips and tricks. And of course, our buddy Jeff was going on about grounding and airflow and maintenance, things like that, which was pretty good. And as usual, Nautel provided a very nice lunch, and then they had a couple of breakout sessions for the AUI and the GV2, which is it's a transmitter which they're putting everything together in a compact, orchestrated way. They advertise it just add audio, so that you don't have to have 4 or 5 boxes. Just bring the audio to your transmitter, and there you are. The one problem for some of the folks, and yes, I was there too, is that first of all, it was at Flamingo, which was down the strip, and the parking was kind of a real pain to find and utilize, unless you wanted to pay $20 for a morning parking. And then the other thing is the show opened on Sunday morning, so that everyone that was at the Nautel, this program, well, they weren't on the floor. And it was interesting to see how things have changed over the past couple of years, where there are more of these so-called educational gatherings, PREC and Ennis and BEA, a lot of things going on the 4 or 5 days before the NAB, and a lot of those folks, they got on the floor Sunday morning into Sunday afternoon, and there was a pretty good amount of traffic. I don't know if this is going to come up right away or whether it's going to be, no, that isn't going to do it. Well, that's not going to be, I'm going to stop that right there, because that's not what I want everybody to have to deal with. At any rate, Monday was okay on the floor. the exhibitors in the radio hall, part of North Hall, said it was kind of ebb and flow, some good, some bad. Yesterday was fairly thin most of the day. And today they've brought the cannons in to see if they can hit anybody in the aisles. I have heard the word is that in 2026, assuming we're all still here and the NAB is, there will not be a Sunday morning start for the floor. They're going to go back to a Monday start. And there had been quite a few complaints about that. But again, Las Vegas is not what it was, folks. Everything is, well, an example. David was moaning about fried foods. And if you went to the concession stands back 3-4 years ago, yeah, you're going to pay $7.50 or $9 for a sandwich. $16 and $18 this year at any of those concession stands. And, it wasn't exactly the worst, but it certainly wasn't the best food in the world. And then again, as many know, just getting into a hotel and dealing with the many different issues, some of the hotels, and I heard about this from more than a few people, the resort fee was more than they paid for the hotel room, especially if they got a hotel room that was off the strip. And that wasn't a real thrill. In my case, I was kind of, I don't know if that was a smart thing to do or not. I think it was. I went and stayed at the Circus. Look, and everybody, okay, it was a room with a bed in it, and you had to get through the lobby and a bunch of families, but it was so close to the West Hall that you could walk it without killing yourself. That was the big deal. Didn't have to worry about parking, didn't have to worry about any other issue. Just get out, walk down there, and it was beautiful sunny days. We didn't have any problems whatsoever. So what we can do from here, I'm going to kind of toy with this a little more, see if I can bring something up that will show us something that is not sideways, which is kind of an annoyance factor here otherwise. And maybe some of you have a high point that you saw. I thought with all the talk about AI that you were going to see it in every single booth. And it didn't work out that way. There was AI on the floor, primarily, I thought, on the TV side and a few on the audio side. But it wasn't as pervasive as I thought I was going to see. And since, David, you're an AI head, maybe you would like to comment on that.
Well, I saw some AI, and some of it I agree with, some of it I don't. But I thought we would be seeing something for AI on the back office side of broadcast, like AI to help doing sales presentations and things, and I didn't see that. And that really surprised me. I thought there'd be AI to help do scheduling, and I didn't see that either.
Yeah, several of the automation systems had parts of AI built into it.
Parts, but not a complete system.
Yes, you just interrupted me. I was going to say, but not entire systems. It's kind of a first, V1, version 1. And there was more like in the ENCO booth where AI was utilized to translate and bring the audio in. But as an example, there is AI now in several of the other automation systems, as the folks at DASTIC pointed out. that it can actually identify what kind of alert is coming in and then schedule an ad or file after an EAS alert that's appropriate to it. And there's a use of AI that makes a certain amount of sense.
Yeah, but they didn't take it the one step further that I expected. I figured AI would be used for the alert and actually to generate the actual message that because the big fight right now is that everyone's saying, oh, AM's needed for emergencies, but half the AM stations aren't even manned anymore. And
well, this is another issue between management, ownership, the fact that ownership doesn't want an EAS. You get your federal unfunded mandate. I've had, and I think I mentioned this in the last couple of weeks, I've had such an annoying setup with the Weather Service that I am just about to have nothing further to do with the Weather Service myself. And I know a lot of stations have already got to that point where they're tired of the message flooding, they're tired of the silo mentality. And the one thing I can say that's kind of a tiny little partial excuse, and it isn't really much, the Weather Service is using old software. Ah, what a surprise. But this old software was written by a deceased person. So the Weather Service doesn't even know how to modify their own software to do certain things, like it would take 2 bits to stop the zombie alert. You know, the YouTube video that's still up there that somebody can pull off, and if they can get into a program feed, set off a zombie alert. Because if you had the year, just 2 bits, you wouldn't be able to do that. But the Weather Service doesn't want that. The Weather Service also doesn't want to take care of something that the NASDAQ folks pointed out 5-10 years ago, and that is using an event number. So that, let's say you have a severe storm warning, and with that severe storm warning, just give it an event number of 244, let's say. And so 10 minutes later, the Weather Service starts another severe storm warning. But this time, they still put that same code in, and a radio station would have the option of running it or not running it. And this is really important, I think, because of the issue that over a period of time, you could get 5, 6, 8, and I have seen 10 SVRs in 1 hour from the Weather Service.
Yeah, but Barry,
yeah, but is that the first thing for every sentence? Do you write that way as well, David?
I do.
Yeah, but every paragraph starts.
You have edited me in the past, so there.
Yeah, get rid of the yeah buts.
So
and the other thing with the Weather Service, and I'll get off my soapbox in about 20 seconds. This partial county alerting, I'm very skeptical about it working. They had a little presentation on Monday, but their attitude, their heads are not with broadcasters. They're not with what we're doing, and they won't listen. All right, David.
I noticed it was around a week or two ago, New York had some bad earthquakes, and the EAS didn't alert us until an hour after the fact. So I know in California you guys have it more often, but it's just like, okay, you're telling us past news now, and nothing was proactive. It was extremely reactive to the point of uselessness. It needs to be more proactive.
Isn't that just because the way earthquakes are, you can't predict them?
No, but you don't have to wait an hour to alert.
We had an EF2 touchdown about 2.5 weeks ago in our town, and it did some damage. Nobody was killed, thank goodness, but people were really, really upset. It was on the front page on the paper. I'd say maybe 25% of the cell phones went off. No one seems to know what happened, but there was no alert for this. And it was about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. It was pretty late at night. People were upset, to say the least. Like I said, it was front page material. They're trying to figure out what's going on, but That's pretty dangerous when you have a tornado at night like that and people get no. And I don't know there was even a warning out. There was a watch out, and it was a warning. It popped up pretty quick.
Well, about the best warning you can get is a dog right now, and that's just a few seconds. But yeah, it was very typical though. And as someone, well, all of us are working in the media. It was interesting that it was like on all the national news, there was nothing but an earthquake. No deaths reported, no major damage, but it was like the world came to an end while they talked about the earthquake endlessly.
Well, that's because it happened in New York.
Exactly.
We had the similar thing 10 years earlier in Washington, and while it was mentioned, it did not get the same play that the earthquake in New York got, which was about the same magnitude, and the epicenter was about the same distance away. So when it happens in New York, the media center of the world, everybody gets to hear about it. That's just the way it is.
And it was an interesting level in that the average person didn't feel it. And I heard a lot of news people saying that they had been asked, did you feel it? And they said no. It was, I think one of the aftershocks was as
It
strong.
was actually where everybody's from, New Jersey.
All right. Well, I'll certify that. Well, here's one that I've got right side up. This is Rich Redmond over at BE Elenos, and one of the things that they were focused on this year was the MDCL. So I'll let Rich talk a bit. So we're here at the BE Elenos booth with Rich Redmond and the MCDL that has been produced for any transmitter?
Any contemporary transmitter, any contemporary AM transmitter built in about the past 15 to 20 years.
And so what will the MCDL do for us?
So it will allow broadcasters to save up to 60% on operating costs by basically reducing the carrier power when the modulation levels are very high and you wouldn't hear any noise. So it overcomes the noise, reduces the carrier power. A typical 10 kilowatt station, if they ran 10 kilowatts half of the day, would save about 6K in a year. If they ran it all the time, it would save them about 12K a year. So significant savings, but good savings for lower powers as well.
Okay, well that's good. And it retrofits almost any transmitter that's out there.
Yeah, very flexible.
Very good. Thank you, Rich.
Thanks a lot.
I thought that was interesting that virtually any transmitter from the last 15 or 20 years can install MDCL. Now, of course, as he points out, that power level is going to make a big difference as to how much savings you might get. And the fact is that a 1 kilowatt transmitter is not going to save you as much as it's going to cost to install this for the first year or two.
Barry, what's the installation like on that? That seems hard to interface to all the transmitters that are out there.
Well, they have that box there that he was briefly showing, and he would make it. I'm sure that they have considered the different models and how to reach out to them. So that'd be an issue to talk with your BE Elenos rep.
Oh, so it's a different box for different transmitter models like that. It's not a universal.
Might be a slightly different layout.
Interesting.
Again, what it does is it reduces carrier level when the modulation permits it. So it's hard for me to judge here because I've been trying to bring this other stuff up. If there's anyone here that was at the show, if there's something that you would like to share with us that you saw. Unfortunately, what I've got here, for instance, I've got the new AM modulation monitor from Innovonics, Unfortunately, it's sideways. So if someone would like to talk for a minute, I'll go back and I'll keep looking, see if I get this thing straight.
Well, Barry, don't worry about it. I watch with an iPad, so I'll just turn the iPad sideways and that'll take care of it.
All right. All right, Marvin, you win.
Booth with Louis, and he's going to tell us about their new product, the
Oh, this is the Davicom booth, this first one.
Neuro, that makes some really good use of the axons. So tell me about it.
Thank you very much. So this is a new product line that we unveiled this year. We have the Axon and the Neuro. They are GPIO modules that will help you convert any sensors or any dry contacts, voltages to SNMP. So they are completely self-contained. They have a web-based environment, and you can see the status of anything you connect to those over this list view that is completely customizable. You can have logging and so on, and there's also a way to create automations as well with these jobs that allows you to create scripts without a single line of code. So they are very intelligent, again, completely self-contained, so they will continue to execute anything even though you're not connected to them. And the Neuro that we see right here is a way to combine multiple axons together and form a single unit and a single IP to connect to.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, if you didn't crick your neck so far that you couldn't find that out, the Axon is a very interesting product that for many places, stations now have IP connections to control everything. So buying a complete remote control system, sometimes folks don't want to do that because they only need one or two things to, recycle the computer or to turn on and off a particular light. And so that's what this Axon will do, is it lets you monitor and control a few things. And then now you can use their new product to monitor multiple axons and see things like that.
Hey,
That work for
Barry?
you, Marvin?
Hey, Barry, on that, on their box where they combine everything together, did you happen to ask them, which would, if I had been there, it's a question I'd probably ask every vendor, what level of security they have on that box if you're going to connect to it, IP that's going to keep other people from, attempting to get into your transmitter control site or whatever. Did you happen to ask them about that?
That's a very good question. And the one that I can tell you for sure is the Gates Air Intraplex, which I didn't know this, but when Harris bought Intraplex, it was a product which was going into police departments, government agencies. Tony Gervasi, who is in charge of it, explained to me that FBI, CIA, DEA, all of those agencies use the Intraplex because of its high security, that has not had a known hacking incident at all. And therefore, for broadcasters, it has a sense of security, although much more than broadcasters need for their safety. Everything else, all the manufacturers, they all will tell you that if you put up a proper firewall and protect yourself, you'll be okay.
Shouldn't proper IP security be assumed at this point? I know it isn't, but shouldn't it be at this point that any manufacturer should be able to say that their system is protected?
Well, you would take that, and the issue becomes, just as it does with the EAS business and the weather service business and all this other material, you have to remember there are small stations out there that do not have the opportunities that we have in a larger station or, major market, let's say, you don't have that background. You don't have the the security because there is no IT department in a lot of cases.
But what you just said is why that any manufacturer should be able to say, yes, our system will work securely.
Well, you should be able to say that, but you can't because you have such a wide variety of IT departments. And I've seen too many of them, for instance, where, especially when you get onto a Native American site, you end up with a situation where the whole thing falls in a sense because you can't get through the firewall. Or, well, I was in Las Vegas. I got a call from a Native American station throwing dead air. And they wanted to tell me that it was their codec. And I said, well, you have two LPFMs. Is the other one playing? Oh, yeah, we can hear us on the other one. Then it's not your codec. I said, it's your IT, it's your internet link. And of course, it boils down to, what can I say, other than somebody in the IT department was doing something and it doesn't occur to them that there's a 24/7 service.
Our company likes to use FortiGate, and they'll use those. They deploy those everywhere. But I looked into it for our little station, and just a subscription, I think, is $1,500 a year. I mean, it's not cheap for these things. I don't know what level. There's some open source hardware firewalls you can build. But, I've been wondering about that myself. How much is good enough? But $1,500 per box. That's something a lot of small stations probably can't afford.
The level of security when we used to deal with it with a larger company, you had within the vendor, levels of access, people who were administrators, people who could configure, and people who just, had to access it as an operator. And then we also had to deal with the issue of former employees. Once an employee becomes a former employee, to make sure the system is such that we can remove their access, usually from at the VPN level or something of that nature. But like I said, every time, and because everything is moving to IP, you buy something, you always have to consider these things and consider the disgruntled employee and who you gave access to at what level and things of that nature. That's, like I said, something I wind up asking every vendor when we're buying a thing.
I got a friend, he does this for a living. He puts in IT security for businesses. He's really, really big on the systems from Ubiquiti. Now we think about those for the, the Wi-Fi transceivers, but he says it's easy enough for the average, person to use, and it's secure, and it's not really super pricey like the FortiGate. I haven't used it, so probably ought to look into that. It's a hardware firewall.
Well, I think that's a topic that I'd like to see explained a little more, worked on a little more. But as we've done in the past, we've had a couple of discussions about firewalls and the wide variety of them. Again, it's like trying to hold a class right here on transmitter maintenance. And if you've got a BE and he's got a Continental and he's got a Gates Air and they've got a Nortel, something that is straightforward and direct for one make might not be easy to accomplish on another. And so this becomes an issue that, well, what do you do? And I agree with what you're saying, Ray, that there needs to be a little more regularity, will you say, or commonality among these products so that they can be used in that way. What have you done, Ray, to bridge that gap?
Not as much as I should. I should have a hardware firewall, and I've been looking at some, but we just use a good antivirus, and then we've got well, I do have the the routers that have the firewall built into it, and actually the new routers they actually go out on the internet and they have a lifetime subscription to the antivirus software. That's probably not good enough, but I replaced those recently, so. We've never, knock on wood, we've never had an attack, but I don't know how hard it is to get through these. Well, I think they're Asus, but it's a high-end Asus that's got the built-in firewall and it's got the built-in lifetime subscription. But our folks at my day job would laugh at that, I think.
Well, David, isn't it really true that the problem is more so that you have to use 80? Port 80. It's almost impossible to get through most of these applications that use browsers without port 80 being involved. So you almost have to go to a VPN beyond a firewall.
Well, I like to think of it that 80 is like the highway, and your firewall is the toll booth, and you just have to. It has to be really up to date, and at least a secure gate has to be there. I mean, if someone wants to get into your system, they're gonna get into it, no matter what. Just like if you're locking your house up and putting an alarm up, and you say, "Oh, I'm protected against thieves." If they want to get in, they're gonna get in. You don't know how long it's going to take them to break through your system, but if someone wants to, they're going to.
So, safety by obscurity, is that what you're saying?
No, you just got to do reasonable safety. I mean, there was one point where most of the major corporations were hit, and luckily they were able to have enough recovery time and so forth. I mean, I see someone put out about the WatchGuard Firebox. Yeah, they're great, but they have to be up to date. And yes, some of WatchGuard is proactive and some of it is reactive. But guess what? No one can really predict what someone's going to come up with tomorrow.
Well, that's true. I mean, there are literally tens of thousands of hackers that are out there every day. Anybody that reads their access logs or any error log on a website will tell you of the hundreds, if not thousands, of attempts a day by bots just to see if they can hit certain ports or certain things. For instance, if you have a WordPress site, you have a certain number of files and directories that are labeled thusly, and so they'll do a dictionary attack on your directories. And that's after they've tried all the usernames, Ray at such and such, David at such and such. And while we could get away with that in the 90s, the folks that are smart today very often will do something like Ray 245 or worse.
Yeah, the companies like SolarWinds, someone that's priding themselves on their internet security, they were hit really bad last year.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing Ben from Innovonics on the screen now.
Okay. Well, we're here at Innovonics with Ben Barber, president of the company and chief bottle washer and janitor. Ben, tell us what you have new here with this AM monitor.
We have the Model 526 AM modulation monitor. It's a 2U box. It has metering on the front panel. It has a LCD touchscreen. So you can set up different parameters, you can look at different meters, you can look at your modulation, signal strength level. It also has a web interface. You can set up 2 different high-level inputs, high level 1, high level 2, or antenna input. So you can monitor it that way. It's frequency agile. You can make up to 30 presets, which would be a lot for an AM station to monitor 30 in a market. But you could do that, and then you can enable station rotation, so it will rotate through those presets, and you'll be able to load the alarm conditions and get those alarm conditions. As far as some of the screens, you've got spectrum plots, so you can see the 10 kilohertz mask. You can also look at a wider bandwidth if you want to look at adjacent channels, see what's there. You can do a band scanner. We should probably have done this. It just takes a few seconds to scan the band, and you actually see what kind of RF signals are at your location and what you're picking up. Very handy if you've got somebody clobbering you or coming in next to you. So here we are at 1250, and you can see we've got lots of signal. We're coming in direct anyway. You've got oscilloscope measurements, so that you don't have to drag a scope out to the site. You've got that for looking for your modulation. And then also day and night conditions. So if you're a sun up to sunset station, you can pre-populate these with your times. That way when you go to low signal condition or at night, you don't get a low signal alarm because it knows, oh, I should be using a different alarm condition.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
All right.
Appreciate.
Thanks for coming by.
I asked Ben if they were selling many of them, because so many stations have stopped running mod monitors when they were made voluntary. He says they've got a lot of orders, which I find encouraging, because I believe broadcasters should do more testing. Where else are you going to get an AM mod monitor, by the way?
Belwar.
Just not out there. Well, let's see.
Does Bellar still make an AM monitor?
Not really. I mean, they sort of, they're not at the show. And as far as I know, after he died, they just sort of faded.
I thought his son was taking over for a while.
Well, different last name, but it was being taken over for a while, but I have not heard anything out of Bellar. Arno having passed away for quite a while now. I imagine, yeah, there's still some older units out there. There's some old TFT units if you want those, and there's probably even a QEI or 20 laying around in back rooms. How many of you ever had a QEI? There you go. That's a good one.
Had a QVI FM monitor, but not an AM one.
I don't know that there was a QEI AM monitor. Okay, I don't know if I've got Tony Gervasi with the Intraplex. I'm just sort of quickly running through these, but Gates Air has also come up with a series of low power analog low power transmitters for translator and LPFM use. And here's Ted. So we're at the Gates Air booth with Ted Lance, and they have a brand new Flexiva product. And Ted, tell us about it, please.
Okay, Barry. We have what we call the GX series. The GX series is goes from 50 watts up to 10 kilowatts. It's an analog only, FM analog only transmitter. So what we've done is to have that be more worldwide than some of our other products have been. And there's a lot of nice features and functionalities built within the different series. For example, they have built-in audio players, so that can be a backup to your normal composite or your AES input. The full HTML5 for remote control to have remote access to the transmitter. Very efficient and very compact. So at the 10 kilowatt in the GX, it's a 5 RU integrated with an integrated exciter all in the compact unit, very small size, in 10 kilowatt and 5 kilowatt in a 5 RU chassis. And then we go from there. At 3.5, we're in a 3 RU chassis. At the 1 kilowatt and the 2 kilowatt, it's 2 RU. Hot swappable power supplies. And again, expounding upon that ROI for the high efficiency that's built within the transmitters themselves.
Well, that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So that was Gates Air. I found it interesting that there are a number of low power transmitters being fabricated and sold because of the sudden jump in LPFMs, in translators, and such. And several manufacturers were commenting that they were doing good business with low power transmitters. And that's not a huge money maker, but you get a bunch of them and you can make some money. For those of you that have known about P-Tech, you may be aware that it's now CW Broadcast. That's Circuit Works. That's Kyle McGrill. And Kyle has just been working furiously to correct the circuit and feature problems that have caused many a P-Tech owner to despair. And he's coupling that with a very liberal customer service plan for new and older boxes. So it's worth knowing about. Somewhere in here, if I can find it, I've even got a picture of Kyle and his newest product. Got to find them though. Oh, there's Bob Tarcio. Well, give me a minute and I'll try and bring some more down here. I've still haven't had time to find a rotator for Worldcast. Worldcast, another one with some very good low power transmitters, the Acriso. And as you probably are aware, Acriso is what supplies Crown as an OEM. And in the new AIO transmitter from Worldcast, they built in a decoder so that if you are sending your programming to them down the internet, all you need is an encoder, and their encoder is $1,500. So you've already got the decoder and the transmitter, the encoder, $1,500. That could save you $2,500 if you're going to buy a pair of bigger codecs. Anyone else have something that they had seen, heard, contacted? Give me a minute here. I guess everybody that on our group here that was in Vegas is still in Vegas, except for me. Let's see. I got a little video here from Innovonics and the Link Up that provided dinner on Monday night for about 40 folks. And we had a good time talking and meeting one another. Also had a nice opportunity with Broadcast Supply Worldwide, BSW. For those of you that have been to Las Vegas, had a lovely dinner at Benihana. So that was a nice high point for me.
That's still in the hotel, right next door to the convention center, whatever they call
is.
that hotel now.
It is. Oh. And do that. I have a very short one here, I guess, from SAS. I went over and got to see Al Sousing. Actually, I really had to go see SAS because the Native Americans had a very bad weekend. The other one out here, they took a power supply hit. A surge on their power supply, and it took out the it took out the power supply on the console station. You know, it's not very good for broadcasting. But for those of you that know Al, he was at the show and, as usual, smiling. Their consoles are pretty much the same, although they've the thing that I thought that was interesting is right down here, if you can see on the spot where I'm pointing, instead of having an LED readout, mic 1, mic 2 or something, it also has a little icon. So there's a microphone, or there's EAS logo or something like that. Makes it a little bit easier for the staff to see what they're dealing with. I thought that was a pretty neat little thing.
Yeah, Barry?
Yes, David.
The real impressive thing is that's backwards compatible, that you can put those modules into an older tub and so forth. Barry, you're muted.
Yes, that's true.
I thought that was really impressive for a quick update of a console, that you can do that.
Well, they've tried very hard to keep their products relatively easy to use and not overly complex, in the sense that you can't go wrong with an SAS product.
No, it's you're driving a Cadillac, definitely.
Although they're not as expensive as some of the similar ones.
Very true.
I found their pricing to be very modest in a lot of ways. I've got also a picture here. Going to have to download it from my phone and then upload it to the screen here. But Wheatstone has updated their audio arts line, and they have the two of them are digital, and they look very much like the existing one, a little bit nicer. They did away with the tip ring sleeve inputs in RJ45 now, but they have a mono version that will sell for $1,500 for an 8-pot analog mono board. Oh, I'm sorry, stereo, analog, not mono, stereo. And has built-in USB and Bluetooth for mix minus and for input from your favorite jock's laptop, or not, as the case may be.
It seems like a lot of the audio boards that are coming out now, they have Bluetooth in their analog, but I don't see that much with Dante or AES. I mean, what am I missing here? It seemed like a lot of the new ones, I would have thought it would have been all digital outputs by now, but I mean, I'm probably missing something.
Well, the problem is that there aren't many people buying. They're not buying the analog consoles.
That and the diminishing ownership is not allowing for variety. So let's say if you're an Odyssey, you're running your Axia. If you're iHeart, you're running your Wheatnet. There's not many customers as there used to be once the majorities are already taken up.
And I haven't shot for an audio board in a while, but I mean, it seems like a lot of them don't have AES or Dante output. I mean, I guess the Wheatstone is good, but a lot of them, it seems like they're just coming out with analog boards, and they do have Bluetooth, but
Well, it depends on what you're trying to do.
yeah.
Let's face it. If you're dealing with an LPFM, why are you going to be spending money for a digital console?
Go to Guitar Center and you get a garage mixing board.
Then you get Ken Fine to install it.
I don't go into garages anymore.
You don't?
Unless
Thought
it's
you-
mine.
Thought you were the garage guy.
And my preference is to get a used, even a used Aracus with a digital mixing board. You can get those for not that much and just come out with AES. We've got AES matrix switches and keep everything in the digital realm. It seems like it's easier to me. Transmitters get digital inputs now and we have an analog backup, but never use that.
They're easier to keep the hum out too.
Like less issue with levels and keep everything in digital a bit. But I've noticed a lot of the boards that people are coming out with, they all have Bluetooth, and I'm not crazy about Bluetooth. My experience is not always reliable.
No, but it's good. It's good for getting in and out of a telephone system.
Yeah. I'm talking about getting into the transmitter. Just give me the AES3 or Dante or something. But they don't seem to be providing that from what I see.
Ray, I might be misunderstanding you, but I have never seen a Bluetooth input to a transmitter.
Oh no, I understand that. They're offering Bluetooth and they're offering analog, but what I really like is AES3, Wheatstone or something, not just analog. I don't know. I'm lazy. I just like AES, I guess.
No, a lot of equipment is still running AES, and it's simple to work with. But when you're running a good matrix system,
It depends on what you've got going. If it's a little LPFM or a non-com, even an AM these days, let's face it, do you need a digital console or do you need something that's clean and easy to operate?
that and also when you're running Dante, WheatNet, Axia, Ravenna, you're basically using less wires and having more capability because it's a great routing system.
That was one of the questions I asked Tony Gervasi, and he'll be with us maybe the second week of May here, I think. And that is, how many stations really do have the translation need between Wheatstone and Axia, let's say, for instance. And the reality is that most stations settle on one make, and they don't have to deal with that. But if you do have that, there are products. Wheatstone makes one, and the Intraplex from Gates Air does. He didn't like the word translate, but that's really what they do, from one standard to another, or one dialect of AES 67 to another. But again, just to go back to that console issue, if you're dealing with a small, I mean, these guys are having a hard time being in the right place, as we talked about last week. There's so many of them that are nowhere near where their coordinates say they are. And so you want something that can be operated by volunteer staff without too much trouble. You want it to be clean, reliable. And to me, that's the key thing. You don't want a console that's going to fall apart in your hands.
We also had the case where we had a lot of people with small home studios, and one instinct might be to go with a Mackie mixer, but the other instinct is, well, let me get something closer to an actual radio console, if for nothing else, the queue function. It's so that's where we wound up looking for certain people who didn't have sort of any kind of technical talent, with just the audio arts kind of a thing. A console that is so simple and basic. Basically, if you understand, if you move the slider up, it gets louder. You got it.
Oh yeah, give me a moment and I'll show you the Wheatstone here. I saw several, including in the Lavo, and the AEQ has a beautiful one where the presets, and you go from one preset to another, and all the pots move. It's really something. Here's
I was going to say at Sirius XM, we went with Lavo, and there are two things to know about Lavo. The first one is you can't possibly spend more money on a console than if you buy a Lavo system and infrastructure. But yes, they had the motorized faders, and when you select another snapshot, which worked out very well for different DJs going into the same studio, you hit the button and all the faders move, and it's fun to show people.
I think AEQ is right there in the same price range as Lavo.
Exceptionally expensive, yes.
So, Broadcast Devices and Bob Tarcio, what do you have this year?
Well, we have the old standby DPS 100D power meters, which we've had for a lot of years, but we're interfacing those to our new SWP 300 remote control and motorized switch controller. We have our new RF safety panel, which also doubles as an interlock consolidation panel for master antenna systems. And we have a brand new audio switcher, 16 channels, mono or 8 stereo, and it has a serial interface that can connect to the Sage NDEC and the DASDEC EAS systems.
That's something that I heard a few people talking about. If you have a digital system and you come down to the EAS box, you go digital to analog and then analog back to digital. And that's not a very popular thing to do. And in talking to Bill Robertson, he made the point that in the DASDEC, where you can append or prepend or postpend a file to the actual alert, they do it all in wave form. And the reason for that is because they want it to sound decent in the digital domain, rather than to suddenly sound like something like that. So, all right.
Was Bob still selling cards to update your Gateway 80 console?
Selling cards to what?
To update the electronics in your Gateway 80 console.
Oh, I don't know about that one, but
That's what got him into business many years ago.
And they were damn good cards.
And Jim Wood started Novonix by doing what? Anyone remember?
The electronics for an Ampex 300 or something like that.
351. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're with Simeon Johnson of Broadcast Bionics, London.
Oh, I gotta find that.
I texted you his new AM mod monitor field strength meter just a second ago.
We're with Simeon Johnson of Broadcast Bionics, London. And here he has a rack of equipment that is all in software.
Yeah, indeed. We're showing on the screen here just a video demonstrating the kind of things that you could put in your virtual rack. Of course, the virtual rack doesn't exist with the screen because it's a box that you can put in your radio station or broadcast facility. And inside that you can load container-based broadcast applications that traditionally would have been hardware units that you bolt into an actual rack. Broadcasters now are making software versions of these old products, and the advantage is that you can buy and license these as and when you need them without having to have physical hardware sitting around in your station. And spare parts, for example, you don't need different power supplies for different pieces of kit because it's all just running on one computer application. And what Virtual Rack allows you to do is provides a really easy way of getting running with these containerized applications. So normally you'd need to learn Linux, Docker, and very complicated stuff, which can take a long time to master. But with Virtual Rack, you just buy some hardware, put our software on top, and then you've got access to a machine that's fully configured, ready to host these broadcast applications. And you can pick them from a library, tick install, and get up and running in just minutes.
It's great. Thank you very much.
No worries.
It was a pretty interesting concept too, and I've seen it. I mean, you start. What was maybe one of the first ones that I remember was the PCN 1600 Orban, which was just software put on a computer. Of course, that's really where Orban Inside or Omnia Inside are basically software put on a card. And now we're seeing more and more audio processors and control things that are done in a software environment. And pretty soon, our radio studios that used to have tape recorders and cart machines and turntables, and you got a computer and a microphone. You could say not much to break, but if you do lose your computer, you are pretty much down and out, aren't you?
Well, ever since COVID, when we sent everybody home and had them operate remote, that's kind of what it's been: remote access into software or real consoles. Back at home base. I had one other question for you, Barry, because I was watching the NAB Daily that was available online, and of course AWS was one of the sponsors of the show, so every third item is AWS this, AWS that. On the radio side and among those people, does anybody really talk about AWS and radio station in the cloud and studio in the cloud and things like that, or is that more of something that the TV and the over-the-top people spend more time talking about?
Actually, several of them. There is, in fact, a company called Radio.Cloud, and they're an automation system, and their whole thing is to conduct it through the cloud. There are several others, and I'm going to sit here and the Stream Guys is now got a new service. a reflector service. So if you want to use them for your STL, you can send your program to them and they'll relay it to your transmitter. Relatively inexpensive. I think they said it was under $100 a month for some of the options. If you have buildings in the way between your transmitter and studio, or you just can't get the right kind of service, now that's something that makes a lot of sense. I was thinking back in the days when we went from $25, $30 program loops to $2,000 program loops. And that's, a little shocking.
If you can get them.
Yeah, because the telcos don't want to do it anymore.
Barry, I wanted to tag on to your comment about digital consoles versus analog. That's part of the conversation that I'm having with LPFMs is to keep the metadata that's flying in serial, and you're switching back and forth between sites and or playout systems and whatnot, that it just stays in serial through the STL loop and pops into the transmitter or the encoder in serial. Or I saw that the new Innovonics, which will be on my test bench here in about a week, just do a conversion from serial to an address encoder. But that kind of plays into how much digital do you want to get? How much digital do you have to switch and send on the internet?
Yeah.
It's an interesting conversation to have with any of the clients.
That's true.
Luckily, I have one LPFM that is proud to say they're playing hits from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and they have equipment to match, with the exception of the playout computer, but an analog console, and analog processors on the mics and whatnot. So brings me to old school. On those interviews in Las Vegas, were you just using your phone or a shot? What were you doing?
Yeah, just using the phone. I had considered taking a camera with me, but have to admit that didn't seem to make a lot of sense.
Barry, if I can make a suggestion for the next time you do it, use a headset microphone because you'll sound better. And if you can get your interviewees to use it as well, because you were getting a lot of background noise.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I know that. I'm amazed that it was as audible as it was, quite frankly.
So you're saying, David, that a 2-foot shotgun would have been wrong?
Depends on the shotgun, because there was a lot of ambient noise behind them, and on some of those interviews, especially on the ones that he's talking about, equipment that's producing good audio, it's sort of defeats the demonstration. And also with Barry in particular, when he was asking, he was getting what I like to call a lot of telephone noise in there. And I know Barry's voice, and if he was on a headset mic with a very small proximity, it would have sounded better.
I agree with you. I'm being facetious.
Well, here's my view of this, because it was sort of a decision. I don't want to say a last minute decision to do it this way, but I thought we're going to get together today, and there's not going to be very many people back from the show already. The best way I can do this is show a few pictures, but I thought it'd be neat to have some of these folks actually talking, and they will be here with us. They will come and do a live presentation before too long.
Well, don't get us wrong. They were good interviews and a lot of great stuff, but we're all engineers here, and we noticed the tiny bit of distortion, and we're just saying how it could have been a little better. That's all.
Good. You send me a microphone and a Bluetooth, and I'll use that.
You know, one
I
thing
haven't
that,
had good luck with Bluetooth microphones. Have you?
The Sennheiser was very good.
one thing for interviews, I found that you can do in post. I don't know if you're probably familiar with waves.com. They have a new plugin called Clarity VX. You can get it for $29, $39, and it's a neural network AI powered. It's 10 times better than anything I've seen. It's pretty amazing, especially for the price. Clarity VX. If you've got something recorded and you want to take out the ambient noise, it's, like I said, it's 10-fold better than anything I've seen up to this point. And they just came out with another one that's similar, and it takes out echoes. Again, using neural, it's a whole different way of doing it with AI and neural networks, but it's called Clarity VX. I forgot what the anti-echo is, but if you've got an interview and you want to take out a lot of noise and echoes, it's pretty good. Almost nothing.
One of our production managers did an AI, cut some tracks on his phone and then processed it through the AI, and it sounded as good as an announcer in a booth. It was scary.
Oh, it's 10-fold. I mean, this is a 10-fold improvement. I mean, I've tried a lot of them. I've got a lot of their products, but this was a 10x improvement in my opinion. It was pretty amazing. But you know, 29, you can often get it for $29. So it's I've got a lot of plugins.
Barry, you can always get a golf cart and equip a little mini production truck.
I'll send you my 15-foot boom.
What I found interesting, and there are a lot of products now that I don't know if it was the first, but Leaf's program, which became the Omnia 9, was very impressive because for the first time, I understood how digital processing could do all these things, get rid of echo, get rid of certain artifacts, and make the audio cleaner. The declipper blew my mind as an example. And I actually spent the time and I guess he was in Thailand, I guess. Had a nice hour conversation with him. And we almost brought that into the BDR, but sadly, that series just sort of petered out. I didn't have a lot of interest in the most recent processing things, and so I kind of stopped that one. But this goes back to when I asked you guys what we can do to make the BDR more relevant and more useful to you. Here's the
Forward with Derek Paleby at Wheatstone.
I think let's see, where do I have to go to do this? I got Wheatstone in the analog boards here.
I think you'd be hard pressed to find a problem in broadcasting that these people that are on here right now haven't seen before.
We're with Darren Paleby at Wheatstone, and we're looking at the brand new Audio Arts.
Yes, sir.
The replacement for the Air 1.
Air 1, yes. So right now we're looking at the AML console. This is our Air 1 replacement. This has two stereo buses. It's an analog console, 2 mic preamps, 4 stereo line inputs. We have a collar that's going to give your mix minus output, and we have a USB to interface any computer via USB. It is all RJ45 connections and wiring, minus the USB. And it does have 2 mic preamps. target price on this for selling is $1,500 US retail.
All right. Now that's all analog, and now we
That's
have
all
the
analog.
digital ones.
These two consoles here are called the DLMs, and we got the DLM Lyric and the DLM Verse. And one is a 12 fader and one is an 8 fader. These consoles are an all digital console. The only analog on this console is going to be your mic inputs. You have your two mic pre's and or inputs for an external line level using an external processor like our Voice 1. All your other inputs are going to be AES or SPDIF digital. And then we give you two USBs for two PC interfaces via USB. And then we give you a Bluetooth and or digital hybrid fader. With the Bluetooth, you'll be able to connect your cell phone, bring the collar into the fader, and the return audio is going to provide you a mix minus. Target on this, price-wise, is a $6,000 retail price. The DLM Verse is exactly the same feature set for the most part as the Lyric. However, on this console, we're only going to give you one USB instead of two that was on the previous console. Same three buses, and our collar on this one is going to be wired collar digital hybrid only. The price on this, and it's 8 faders, and the price on this is a $5,000 retail price range.
All right. Well, thank you, Darren. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
They also have some updates to their audio processor. Actually, the different companies have done that, although Innovonics didn't really change their David much this year. I talked to Frank Foti, who will be with us again in the coming month or so, and talking about some of the things he's done to bring surround sound into a stereo environment, or to give you just the things he's done to make the audio sound sweeter. And Frank is working hard to bring some new folks in. Talking about new folks, he worked with Corny Gould for a long time, and Corny's been working with Angry Audio. And as those of you that have been with us a number of times, the mic compressors, the streaming compressors, headset amplifiers, all the different gizmos that Catfish has led us into. So a lot more to talk about. I could show you more little clips here for an hour or so, but there were so many booths, there's so many people to talk to. It's funny because you could say we need an extra day or two. On the other hand, after 3 days, I got to tell you, I'm worn out. I'm glad to be back home. So I hope that sort of taste of what NAB was. Now, I know in some of your cities, the Next Best Thing tour is coming. Greg Dahl, I ran into him at the show, and they're going to have a limited run this year, but you'll have an opportunity to see some of these things in a live format. So, aside from not having a good microphone, what other complaints you got?
Now, the vertical format was very interesting.
I'll run another one of those if you'd like. It never occurred to me that, because I know with the PDF in the browser, I wonder if you ran that I wonder if you ran the video in a browser, if you could do it. Well, I'll be playing with it. Maybe next week I'll show you Worldcast and the other one.
Your use of what Corny and the guys at Angry Audio are doing, you said, in many gizmos or multiple gizmos, and Gizmo is a product of theirs.
Well, one of the interesting things, if you watch the industry, you watch all the industries. I think the drug industry is probably one of the easiest to deter. They're running out of words. You know, a new drug comes out and it's this crazy set of letters that might mean something. And if you really dig into it, maybe there's one or two letters that give you a clue. But so many companies, and can imagine the amount of money they spend with marketing firms to come up with these product names.
Yeah. The not to compare, and you've already been handled by David's comment about the audio, but the TTT piece on Tuesday, Gordy's Rebel for the RE mic, that sounded really good on this end.
Oh yeah, both the Smooth and the Rebel. They're
Yeah.
very good products.
Yeah,
And
I was surprised. It was, I mean, you guys were saying we're sharing microphones and you're swinging that one RE20 back and forth on the boom. But the near field proximity effect, which I'm not really that well familiar with that mic, but you could not tell. It was really nice. You guys didn't necessarily have to swing the booms as much as you did.
well, Corny tells me, and Catfish tells me he's promised me a Smooth to work with my
Your 7.
7 here.
Yeah. I mean, I've already had you critique how bad my laptop mic is, and I'm real tempted to go in the direction that you're going in.
There were a couple of other microphones that I saw on the floor. Again, like broadcast radio, what do you do to make a new microphone? What feature? TPA has a shotgun microphone that's only about yay long, and yet it's highly directionalized. There's some others, but what do you do with a microphone? Shure has, I don't say patented, but they have this sound. Sennheiser has this sound. EV has this sound. And there are people that are fans of each one. And there's nothing wrong with that. What happens is after it leaves the microphone and gets into Distortionville, that's when you don't like it. But yeah, I worried. I'm pleasantly surprised that those floor interviews came out as cleanly as they did.
I've got a DX Sony Pro camera, broadcast camera, and I put a Sennheiser on it as a shotgun over the shoulder, and Sony was giving away a shotgun. This is the 10-year-old story, about the size you were talking about. I mean, it's maybe 5 inches long as opposed to the Sennheiser at whatever it is, 17 or 20 inches. And it sounds great. And Sony was pushing them, but it's a 3.5 millimeter output to XLR. I mean, I'm uncomfortable jockeying the camera around as it is. And then you put a little shotgun on top of it with not a professional connector.
Ray, I have to disagree with you. The problem with the movie industry, as well as the television industry, is they've moved to a point where they bury dialogue in sound. And I saw a survey that's an astounding number of people, young people, use the captions now because the movie industry went too far in burying audio.
I've just heard they've got special paper that they use, you know, they crinkle paper that you know, I don't know. I've talked to a few of the guys and they seem pretty, well, I guess maybe they don't appeal to us, but they seem to know what they want. But maybe it's changed.
Well, sound in movies, you have special studio, and a special bunch of sound creators.
Foley.
The Foley, exactly. And so, yeah, you will get a crinkly paper for a fire, and you'll get slamming wood for on and on and on.
Don't forget the coconut shells.
The Audio Engineering Society has started a working group working on dialogue intelligibility for that purpose. We've been meeting every week now for a couple weeks. We're working with the movie companies as well as the television distribution side, as well as the mastering studios and so forth, to come up with a way to recommend how they can have a more intelligibility with the audio. I mean, it's not just raising up the center channel 3 dB and hoping that for the best.
Sadly your word recommend is the problem. I've seen several products. One was shown at the NAB about 5-7 years ago called Aftermaster. And then there was another one that I saw out of Japan the past year or so. And what they do is not necessarily boost the center channel but what they do is they take the vocal frequencies and they massage it with processing so that the frequencies become a little more intelligible, I should say. And it makes it a lot easier to understand a program if the dialogue is not buried.
Yes, we're working on it. It has become a very noticeable problem, and everybody is very concerned that the public has found the solution already of using the closed captioning, and that's what if you look at any movie, let's say some of the Christopher Nolan movies and so forth, you really can't understand them that well because of everything's mixed for cinematic, and the days of a video being distributed, one for TV, one for the movie cinema and so forth, are gone. They're only distributing one mix now. So that's why we have put together the committee. And the recommendation is good, Barry, because yes, the recommendations get elevated to standard if they're really accepted, as some of the loudness standards were. But I have hope for this because we just had an argument recently because originally they were going to said, oh, let's do this and we'll recommend this to the audience. I said, no, that's not the way to do it, because if you ask the audience to do something, it's not going to happen. It has to be at either at the manufacturer level or at the transmission level where the solutions will lie. And so that's how we're looking at it now.
Comment was made here. Video without excellent audio is garbage. This is something that goes around in the days when TV was young, or UHF was young, let's put it that way. You would find that people would put up with some video distortion as long as the audio was clean.
Oh, I agree with you so much, because video without the picture is radio, and video without the audio is surveillance. So I understand that. And
I can't see you, David.
You really want to?
You don't want me to answer that question.
I was eating my lunch. I didn't think you guys wanted to see me eating.
Well, it is virtual.
Mm-hmm.
I can get you a palm tree.
So that committee is being very active, and we're hoping sometime over the summer to have a preliminary report out. And I feel that that committee is going to be very effective. We're meeting weekly at this point.
Up until I heard this conversation, I literally, I thought it was just me. Watching movies and
Oh no,
saying,
it
I
was featured
fled.
on CBS Sunday Morning, and the New York Times did an article on it, and
I
it's
flat
become a very
went to sleep during Oppenheimer the first time because the whispering, couldn't understand a word they were saying.
Well, it's movies, the music industry's been doing it for years, burying stuff, burying.
Yeah, I mean, some of the prime examples are the Christopher Nolan movies, as I said before.
Oppenheimer was Nolan.
Yeah, he tends to want his movies to be very cinematic, and unless you have a 7.2 system in your house, forget it. It's something that I was bitching about very early on when immersive television came about. I said, why are we doing this with no fallback compatibility? When stereo came out, they made sure that it still sounded good in mono. They don't fall back to anything anymore.
I got to dig out my Stan Freberg files. Audio does tell the story.
I'm enjoying that comment about audio tells a story. Video is the candy that sweetens the production, and yet for 11 years in the audio studio, we were sweetening video as a product. The term being used. David, are you saying that that, I mean, I'm being really old school of saying an Auratone in the middle of the audio mixing console so that you can hear that fallback or foldback, that without 7 point whatever, the intelligibility in going back to 5.1 or, left, right, and center, we lose that because of the unprocessing that takes place?
I'm not fully understanding what you're saying.
Well, if you're not going to be fully taking it to 7.2 or whatever, if you only have a 5.1, if you only have stereo and you're watching a movie, is part of the problem that you're not fully extending out all the reverb and echo and special effects and how they process the voice?
Oh, I am purposely not saying that.
Okay, all right.
Not
Not that you wouldn't say it better than I did, but
no, I wouldn't say it better either. And the television can sound good, but as always, we've created so many tools that it's, at points it's detrimental.
I can go back 20 years ago, and I remember how much time we spent in the audio studio trying to make sure that by the time our product left, and I'm talking commercial, but by the time the commercial left, that we knew what the processors were on the different AM and FMs and made sure that we had at least given it a fair shake in the studio to sound good on a mono Auratone versus a mono near field versus stereo near fields, and then going to the big monitors in the studio. We kind of knew what the different DSPs were doing or analog processors at the different studios, and we were conscious of that.
I used to say that we had to sound really good with NS10s. This way, we knew we'd sound good everywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I still carry some of those early near fields with me. I mean, they were powered and expensive, but I have them with me, and I have taken them on sound reinforcement jobs because I understand more about what they do than putting up, big 400-watt sound reinforcement speakers for smaller groups. I can control feedback and do what your comment was about Barry on the floor, is to go to headset microphones And that's about the only way to control some of the live spaces that you get stuck in.
And we must remember the main rule in monitoring. Monitoring means you're listening in your comfort zone. And so if you have to use your own speakers, you know how they behave and you know how they should sound in a good situation.
Yeah. Funny, we're having this conversation about going out and sitting in the cars and listening to what, whatever your car radio tells you it sounds like. Now we're going to have this conversation about, okay, so what in what car shows what information of metadata on that particular radio? And the conversation of, and I can't remember if it was Intercom in the day, said, all right, one of the CEs told me that this is the brand of Pioneer, the 2-DIN high Pioneer in this rack mount, in this monitoring bay and engineering is the standard of the day that everybody watched for RDS information. And where I'm walking into this conversation again about, pick a brand because it's going to be different than the next car.
The reason we picked the Pioneer in at least the Intercom lab was that it was the easiest for availability because for metadata was all that you saw, and most of the stuff was off the same chip anyway. So it was what we can get really quickly from Crutchfield at the time.
I wondered about it. It was pretty, and RDS was relatively new to me in the day.
If you look at some of the current radios right now in the new Toyotas and the new Subarus and new Mazdas, there's a problem with the it's not called RDS in HD. I forget what it's called in HD, but it's not giving all the information when you switch the radio station onto HD from regular analog. It's losing some of the display right now, and Toyota's not happy with it. Subaru's not happy with it. David Layer was showing this at the NRSC during the NAB convention, and yeah, I brought up that the Mazda does the same thing because I have a Mazda and a Subaru here, and I noticed that the information goes away right away when you switch it into HD.
I do believe that's PAD, program associated data.
Yes, thank you. I couldn't remember the name right now.
We have a Sangen radio at up the hill where our STLs and actually where our RDS computers are, and unfortunately the old one blew up. And we got a new Sangen. I believe as the next thing we can do is, the next same model as far as I know. But anyway, it acts differently than the earlier one. So go figure. It looks just like it, but it's different.
I highly encourage you all to Google up NRSC G.304. It's a document that is a handbook for metadata for both streaming and for broadcast. It's a free download, so it won't cost you anything, and it'll tell you how everything works. Plus, it has an amazing glossary in there also. The glossary alone was proposed almost to be a separate document because it is so informative on all the terms that you need, but it tells you everything to understand metadata.
Can you repeat that again?
It's NRSC G.304.
Got it. Thank you.
I happen to know the number because I was the main editor on that one.
You have a dash radio or a dash mounted radio that you like better than the rest?
I think they all sound like crap.
Okay, so radio, just a preamp output tuner with with the computer screen. Do you have anything that
I think Crane makes some really good stuff. But I don't have it in my car because I've determined that to pull the radio out and switch the radio out in my car was too much work because it was going to affect too much of the other functionality of the car.
Plus, you can't get your head in and out of the car because your head is this big.
No, Barry, that's a problem you have.
No, I can only see from your lips to your hairline. Are you telling us that your head is smaller than we think?
Barry, I am sorry that you feel that I have to make my appearance appealing to you.
Whoa! Somebody bring the video processor in here.
And I have to tell
It's a
you,
good thing we just stopped recording.
I do have a face for radio. I know that.
We can make him into a cat, can't we? Was that a courtroom where the lawyer had a cat face on?
I believe you are correct.
Be interesting to watch you, David, as a cat.
You have interesting ideas of amusement.
Oh, goodness. I have interesting ideas. I never get a chance to do very much with it, you know.
You know, some of us have cats that wander back and forth behind us all the time. Well, Robert, you survived your whatever they were doing outside with your ISP.
Yeah, AT&T was here earlier. I thought they were gonna cut my cable again, but they moved off.
Oh, you're already in your new place.
I'm still at the old one. I'm gonna run a POD, one of those 16 footers. Yeah, it's not here yet, but I am using my garage as a staging area to make sure I can fit it all within that little square.
The only thing I can tell you that I've learned recently is you have to be very, very, very careful with these moving companies because they'll give you a quote, and then when you get at the other end, it's suddenly 5 times as much.
That's one of the reasons that I looked at Pod was there were so many YouTube videos of happy customers that I went in that direction.
Barry, how is this?
All right, David. Keep talking.
1, 2, 3, 4.
What does the fox say?
Is this a fox or a cat? I thought this was a cat, but I could be wrong.
Definitely a fox.
It's good to see you again, Joel, or at least see your name. Haven't seen much of you lately.
Yes, sorry. I'm trying to hit every button but the right one.
Ah. Well, we have one right button.
That was easy.
Actually, I ended up with this one.
The international version.
Exactly.
So is that Bluetooth?
No, that's finger.
Something. Fácil. That was easy.
And that was Canadian. So David and I were the only two here that went to Las Vegas. And we both left early.
I was there with you guys.
Why didn't we see you?
Well, I had dinner with you one night.
Well,
actually, only one night. I wanted to see you at the Nugget breakfast, but my company had other plans.
yeah, Mike, that's right.
Yeah.
But we had a good time.
Nug.
Too many people. What was that?
I only saw Barry at the Nug.
And I saw you, David, I guess in a couple of places. So I saw you at the SBE event, and then I saw you on the floor the day before yesterday.
Okay.
You realize you were on your side in this picture.
Oh, am I on my side?
Yeah.
Okay. I can change.
Driving
I
on
thought
two
it
wheels.
Yeah.
Your one stuff.
There you go.
Was it a mod?
I thought that rendered properly. Sorry. I thought you guys were the only ones on the side. Yeah, that was my first show. I enjoyed it. Anyone who says, you don't have to go to the NAB, they must not want to do and learn much, because I did and learned a lot, and I feel I didn't learn enough.
Were you at both days of the NS?
No. I was at the Public Radio Engineering Conference, and it was my first. I felt the need to focus on that. I wish I could have done both, guys. I really do.
I found it interesting how many people walked up to me and thanked me for making sure that there were no sales presentations at the NS, and that all it was discussions of technology and technique, because I made sure that no one was going to have any sales presentations there.
Yeah, there was none of that. I only attended 2 or 3 of the sessions that were most important to me. And yeah, they were all facts and educational. And I really liked how questions were to be saved until the end, so that as a panel, there was a discussion. That was really nice. And then sometimes those people who gave us the presentation could have a dialogue amongst themselves, where they were all kind of tied together, in concept, so there could be an expanded discussion instead of with just one person.
I'm glad that worked out. That was a last minute thought of mine, just because we were trying to keep everyone on schedule. And I said, let's just do it this way. And everyone thought it was crazy, but it worked out. And it's nice that the SBNS, we were totally sold out, and SBE and NAB did not think we would fill the room. And next time they're going to have to double the size of the room, because we had so many people that had to be turned away.
Mm-hmm. I'll also say, it was really neat at the SBE social to meet Merrill Weiss. That was a treat and a half, along with everyone else, by the way. And they had the ham radio get together. I didn't get to stay and see much of that, but my gosh, was that huge. And I was really shocked at all the people who either have an interest or their license, who are some of these people who are presenters at that event. It was really, really nice.
Yeah, Merrill is a treasure to the industry. I've known him probably since the early 80s when he was working on BTSC. So, and the most amazing thing is, if you go up to him with any question, he'll sit there and explain it to you. He's that nice a guy, and always willing to share information.
He really is. I tell you what, and I called him today to follow up. He told me how he got his start in this business and how it related to amateur radio. He really took the time to explain it, and I had to be somewhere for dinner. Actually, yeah, I had to be there at a dinner somewhere, trying to be not, too late. And I explained, hey, I've got to go. Like I said, I've got a dinner to meet up at. He said, well, don't you want to hear my story? And I was like, can I come and visit you in New Jersey and hear the rest of it and take you out to lunch? And he's like, I guess we could do that. But I called him up today. Really a heck of a guy.
Barry, he would be a great guest for you.
Yes, he would. In fact, I would like him to talk about, and it could happen on Barry's lunchtime get together. I'd love to hear him talk about, pick a topic, but for me of interest would be this single frequency network for the TV stations, because we run one.
That, and also he can explain better than anybody else the standards practice and how.
Yeah.
So Barry, I'd be glad to give you any questions you need for that one, because that would be a great interview for you.
Yep.
All right. Well, we'll follow up on that.
And my only regret at the show is at the SBE meeting. I won the grand prize of the Vez aerial for the house, and my wife made me give it right back because she said, we have 2 aerials on the house already. You're not putting a third. And I decided that it was not worth the legal fees to have that fight with my wife.
Your CEO, right?
You got it.
Hey, Barry, so I still like to have Merrill as a guest for an SBE presentation. There's so many things to talk about, but another reason I want to get him is so we can have an archive, a video archive of him. You know, it'd be neat to just have that for years to come.
Sure.
As opposed to reading articles about him, which I found a few.
Well, one of my great regrets is that as much as I tried, I was never able to sit down with Jack Selmeyer and a camera.
Yeah. Hey, and here's something fascinating to the hams out there, if you ask me. Merrill brought up a point, and I forget the call sign and the gentleman's name, but the creator of what we call FT8 for amateur radio, he graduated, Merrill graduated maybe 3 or 4 years prior to this guy, but that's another great standard that was created. They both graduated from the same high school.
By the way, I was going to send you an email later today, Mike. I really, really enjoyed our dinner Tuesday night and having you there in your
Yeah, it was special. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Well, it's one of those things that it's so hard to find a quiet any place outside of your hotel room, and even that is not quiet.
Yeah. True.
It is almost, except for the problem that you can't Nortel little thing happened there that illustrates how hard it is to do anything with the NAB. Nortel's 55 years old now, and they were going to have an anniversary cake. Now, the last one cost $400. This one, they wanted $1,200. The convention center. And see, the thing is, you can't bring one in from outside. The NAB cops won't let you do that. They get really annoyed if you have water or food or drinks or anything that they don't sell you.
Wow.
Well, Telos gets away with bringing in the Petridge Farm cookies.
Well, they do tend to hide them a little bit better and sort of mix them in with the other NAB stuff. They won't let you do a food truck. They won't let you do anything really unless you buy it through them at a premium.
Same thing in the Javits Center for the New York NAB and AES. The convention center's contracts preclude all that.
One of the reasons, for those of you that don't know, those of you still with us this afternoon, one of the reasons they moved it to Sunday to Wednesday is because they needed to get everybody out the door before Friday hit.
Oh, okay.
And they really wanted to get everybody to come in the previous week to get set up without double and triple time. Because you can't do anything without the union guys. And it's funny because years ago, the NAB gave up on Chicago because the unions were so overbearing. But if you want to plug something in, you have to have the union guy there. They charged Nautel $50 a day just for some guy to come by to make sure that their TV screen was still working.
Barry, the funny thing at the SBNS was we had them deliver the audio system. There was supposed to be an operator the whole time there. The guy never showed. We actually had one of the SBE members volunteer to run the board the whole time. So we had really good audio as opposed to with the usual.
Yeah, and then you have to understand, again, those of you that have never gone into this, $40 a square foot is where it starts for the booth. Then they charge you for the carpet, they charge you for the table, they charge you for the chairs, they charge you for the waste paper basket.
They also charge you for electric. In the old days, they used to charge you for phone. The interesting thing is they did provide Wi-Fi this year to everybody. As slow as it was, they did provide it.
Not on the show floor.
Yeah. You had to know which one to go to, but yeah, there was only one sign in the center hall where it actually explained that it was complimentary.
Oh.
Max Connect?
No.
No.
And I'm surprised that somebody else hasn't started manufacturing and selling phones. I'm surprised like JK Audio or somebody like that hasn't done this. Because the trick is simply the priority codes.
Hey Barry, what's your take on the triple helix?
I was a little surprised. Catfish went home, so I really couldn't talk to him before. Logitech needed help desperately. That other company that was in there, can't remember
Max
the
Connect.
name.
It's Max Connect, Angry Audio, and Logitech.
Well, there's one more that was in the booth there.
I thought it was only those three.
That's what I thought too, but it looked like a audio processing or video or something.
Hi.
And
Hi, sweetie.
Josh doesn't have a very good reputation in dealing with people. And then, of course, it wasn't just it just wasn't this triple helix. There was the other grouping. There's several groupings that have come up over the past couple of years. Who am I thinking of, David?
I have no idea of what you think of.
SAS, American Amplifier Tech, Orban Marketing, and someone else are all together with DNAV.
Yeah, but those are separate companies. They're just trying to create an alliance. This is the Triple Helix is actually a company.
Yes, yes.
If you remember, might have been maybe 10 years ago when another group tried an alliance and never worked.
Well, there were several attempts. There was the one that SCMS was pushing a few years ago.
Yeah, that was the one I was thinking of.
Well, what do you think, Robert?
I think about that company called Broadcast Industry Group, which is what Jay named his broadcast empire out here.
There's a new one. Well, there are more reps than they are one company ownership, but the Radio Gearheads just getting started. And
Yeah, that one looks like it's almost set up exactly like RF Specialties was.
Well, right now it's just two guys. RF Specialties is the 6 o'clock Soviet. Everything's by committee. There's some real good guys at RF Specialties in many of the offices, but it doesn't operate as a cohesive firm. And then BSW is going to go back to the green sheet.
What exactly is that?
Remember David Green?
Yeah, I remember David Green in the Green Book. Yes.
And so they're signing people up, and depending on how much they buy, they get bigger discounts. And I guess other features, special sale prices, things like that.
Oh, and by the way, I found the most economical place you can have the luncheon next year.
Yeah, what's that?
The Denny's is actually really good. That's right up the street.
Well, but there's not enough room and it's not quiet.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge, and they have a separate room.
I did notice that the Bagel Mania was that's where we met this year. It had a little
I missed that one. Even though I'm the one that suggested it to you, I didn't know when you were doing it.
I think Jeff was the one who told me Bagel Mania first. But yeah, that was I put it out there. I put it on the broadcast list, and of course,
Yeah, well, I didn't see it. Big deal.
some of you people are playing Facebook now to the exclusion of everything else. I'm just not going there. I can't. I don't have enough time to play Facebook. But
No,
yeah,
so
I suppose that's worth looking into. It's not that much further across the street than Bagel Mania. But there's nothing else. Well, there's a pizza joint in Circus Circus, but I didn't bother to go look what their pricing was. I went to get breakfast at the Burger King because the McDonald's is gone from inside Circus Circus. And they wanted $6 for a egg muffin.
the McDonald's is across the street from Circus Circus, right on the strip there.
That's a real McDonald's. There was a McDonald's in the Circus Circus upstairs. Now there's a Starbucks upstairs if you want that.
Must be.
But everything over at
There you go.
there's a bagel joint in Circus, but that was like 16, 18 bucks.
There, Kevin.
That, or believe it or not, because it was so poorly placed
Oh,
on the second floor of the South Hall, there were plenty of seats and tables right in front of the Johnny Rockets in the convention center,
That's everybody got put in.
which was around $16 a person, and for a soda, fries, and a burger.
yeah. That seemed to be the common price at three of the concessions I saw over the few days.
Before I had the camera on, I was upstairs.
Meow, meow, meow. Meow, 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 meow. Meow, meow.
Why, hello, little guy.
George, is that your grandson?
Oh yeah, that's me.
Yeah, if I figure out where the unmute button is. Yep. I got the unmute button now.
Fall Guys. So,
One of them.
you can see you.
Is he smart enough not to go into radio?
I can only tell you that the buffet at Circus is not worth trying to use that.
I did the buffet over at the Westgate yesterday. It was not as badly priced as everyone said it was.
Oh, they actually opened during the week this time.
Yeah, it was I think $26 a person. Yesterday, went there for brunch before getting onto the flight.
Oh, so it was still breakfast, but it wasn't until lunch.
Well, we went in at 11:45.
Oh, yeah. The last couple of years they've not been open during the NAB.
No,
And that's the problem. You can't plan if you don't know.
yeah, it's called the Fresh Buffet now. I think it was called something else before, but it was decent.
Yeah, theirs was not that bad. The one at Caesar's Palace was not bad,
So
but awfully crowded.
there's a guy up here in Metuchen, Merrill Weiss. So he's also one of the famous people we're talking about. Locked up.
I liked the food at the Nug, but the food did not like me.
Most of the food there was good, except the tandoori chicken was dry.
I ate one thing that just really did not go well with me, but I'm assuming it was me. I thought it was very interesting that they had such a large gathering and served Indian food. That was something I would have never expected.
Well, it would have been okay. Tandoori chicken is fine if it's done right, because the whole purpose of the tandoori is to keep the juices in. But this was just dry. This was sort of a grilled chicken breast with tandoori sauce on it. That's about all there was. I was not pleased. Now you get to a good Indian restaurant, and tandoori chicken is hard to beat. I was amazed at Caesar's Palace that there was so much pizza. You would think for what they were paying for that buffet but it was very, very crowded around the pizza table.
Little Little Caesar's Pizza.
No, this is Caesar Palace Pizza.
Little Caesar's Palace. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know what it was in Circus, but there would have been room there because that place was pretty empty most of the time.
Put it on your finger. On the finger.
Yep. It's your turn to mute.
I stayed at Circus a few times when I was there, and indeed, it's a room to stay in, and it was not as bad as a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
There was no cleaning service during the week. I was surprised. I figured it might be every other day, but no, never came in.
You lift.
Maybe you should take it personally.
Well, I saw no reason to leave a tip to anybody. No, you had I think there were 3 towels, and that was about it.
That's what the resort fee was supposed to be for, right?
Yeah. Oh, and the internet in Circus that's in your resort fee, less than 5 megabits.
Isn't there a law out there that they're not allowed to throttle anymore?
No, there's no law about that.
I thought there was.
But you could pay more. You could pay $20 or $7 a night or something and get more, or pay $15 a night and get complete wide open. The only rule change this year is the FCC changed their definition of broadband. And the little phone companies can't get away with 15 megabits or thereabouts and call it broadband anymore.
News Power at 1200.
Yes.
We just thought that was screaming.
Well, since we have a few left, I'll ask the question I probably should have asked earlier. Did any of you read that review I did on the Yi camera? Opinion?
Was that in your last email?
No, it's on the website. Yeah, I think it was last week's newsletter. It was in there. It's a PTZ with remote control, and you can put a micro SD card in it. And it does not only motion sense, but it will follow. If you walk through the room, it will follow you. 30 some bucks. I thought that was not a bad deal. They do try to hit you up for their cloud service a lot, but that's all the camera guys now.
I've got 3 of them.
These
I've got 3 of those little cameras. I've got one over at City Island, and one up at our new Dover location, the transmitter site.
You like them?
I love them. Oh my gosh, you can't go wrong. Yeah, yeah. I mean, they've got different tiers, but if you just want to use it, just normally like that, it's great.
It's got some night vision too.
Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, goes black and white at night vision and color during color when it's got enough light. And and I can tell if somebody's in the transmit room.
It's got a touchpad sort of thing that you can use to move the camera around.
Yeah, this one's a little bit different than the ones that I have, but you know,
360. It goes around 360 degrees and tilts up, I think, 20 degrees and down 50, something like that.
yeah, mine are only 180s, but it's got a second. It's got a second panoramic, so that you can. So what'll happen is, and it's you know, of course, it's app based. Yeah, you can press on the one portion of the panorama, and then the camera will pan over to that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it'll do motion. They've come a long way with these.
Oh, they sure have.
Now I do have them inside, so I don't know how they would work outside.
That's an inside camera, that particular one. They have an outside one that has night vision and lights and everything. And it's also Wi-Fi. I also picked up a Wyze at NAB. In fact, John White was telling me they've just come out with a new model, version 4, and the one I got was a version 3. I can figure out where I put them.
Yeah, the ones that I have are Wi-Fi, but I have them plugged in. I just don't trust Wi-Fi, especially if you have, especially if there's multiple Wi-Fis around. We have one of our locations. There's 2 different Wi-Fis, and the Wi-Fi cameras just it just to me they're a headache.
Well, what I don't like is the fact that you have to use your cell phone. They don't do very much for a PC control.
Everything's going handheld.
Well, I got too many apps on my phone now.
And you'll have more. Yes. No, the kids all want stuff right there on their phones. They don't want to be anywhere without their phone.
Oh, that's true. That is very true.
I was wondering something before, though, and something caught my eye. I was watching the 700 Club. They mentioned as far as the data center in Loudon and the amount of electricity that the data center was taking up. And I started thinking about this in terms of RF and streaming. And at some particular point, listening to your favorite radio station will consume more and more electricity as a result of more and more people streaming on their individual devices. Whereas we've seen the transmitter the power usage go down. In other words, as the efficiency has gone up. And we've also seen that over the years in transistor radios. So at some particular point, I wonder when when we're going to see the power usage, the more demand on the utility because of streaming.
I can see what you're saying there, but also keep in mind that the power efficiency of networking devices and client devices is also getting better rapidly, particularly in data centers where power usage is money, but also density. Because the more stuff you can fit in a given rack, or the more processing you can get for a certain amount of power, is a great benefit.
But there's got to be a point to where, okay, with the rack that you're talking about, you still have to cool that rack because you've still got the power dissipation.
Yes, and that is one of the reasons why being power density in your rack is one of the reasons that is driving data centers wanting to have more and more, more and more operations for a given watt, say.
So at what particular point would the streaming then take over the RF as far as power consumption overall on both ends?
That is going to be highly situation dependent, and it's also going to depend partly on if you want to look at the overall power usage, and that's going to depend on how many data centers it has to go through from ISPs and the like, or are you just concerned about the equipment rack and power usage for the broadcaster?
Well, yeah, I mean, it just doesn't go from the data center to your phone. It goes through quite a few hops, not the least of which is, to your cell phone switch, the switch. In other words, where your cell phone gets its signal.
I certainly understand what it is there. I can also say if I've spent the day today working with fiber optic communications, and it is amazing the power efficiency that is coming out with modern SFP, fiber optic transceivers. You can get 20 kilometers of communication at 800 gigabits per second symmetrical for 10 watts.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, 800 gigabit per second is quite a lot of audio streams.
When I just, from my own anecdotal, going from Comcast cable last year to the Frontier Fiber, it's just been a difference of night and day. I've mentioned it here, probably ad nauseum, but it is still much more robust, much more stable than the Comcast cable ever was. But I also have more now. I have more things streaming on it too. So they're providing me with 1 gig up and down, and it's just at this point I can't see myself going ahead and even looking at any other pricing plans that they might have, for any other speeds, because I can, for the foreseeable future, I don't see myself even thinking about any kind of an adjustment. But as I say, those are the things that I was wondering about today, though, the future of at what particular point. So, you know, all this about power consumption and power provisioning. So, yeah, I mean, we've seen these things. You know, you've got the look at the phone companies themselves, gone from the mechanical switches. You know, just in our lifetime, the mechanical switches to the electronic, to the digital. You know, to what is now the fiber, and you would go into a central office and it would make the devil's own noise. You couldn't, and at the wrong time, you couldn't even hear the person right next to you because of the switching. But now, you know, I'd love to go into one of the into one of the central offices now. Not only is it a ghost town, but I'm sure you could probably, you know, play a round of, ping pong or something in there and still make a lot more noise than even the air conditioner.
I was having a discussion with JJ Johnson about that, that they're tearing down all the old stuff. As a matter of fact, this past month, they just tore down Murray Hill. And the anechoic chamber's gone, and all the equipment that was supporting the cross-Atlantic cables are now gone. And as a matter of fact, they're now using the old cable to pick up the old cables because everything's fiber now.
Well, when my father passed away in 2009 up in New Jersey, I went by WOO, and that looked like it had been a ghost town for quite a while at that point. Doesn't even, it's bare. I mean, I think they're keeping it only for for some kind of nature preserve, but it looked like not even the birds wanted to nest near it. Yeah, and when was the last time you saw a feed horn, you know, on top of a building? And at what point will even fiber optic be obsolete?
Possibly never. I just remember reading the news article came out last month, achieved in a lab cable communication speed of 301 terabits per second.
Mm-hmm.
It is just going higher and higher. So a single fiber with 301 terabits per second, and there's no theoretical maximum to the speed.
Right, but you still have to lay it.
Yes, but if you're laying this single mode fiber, and as long as it's undisturbed, all you have to do is keep up.
I would say I would say probably not in our lifetime, but I would say it will probably come. I mean, we're seeing it in TV, you know, how you can go ahead and keep stuffing more and more channels in that 6 meg, you know, that same 6 meg
Megahertz.
Thank you. But it doesn't hurt at all.
Well, it megahertz.
Yeah. I've often had a problem with the word megahertz because I grew up with the megacycles.
Hurts to say it, huh?
It just does. It's just never flowed right.
So I'm under 40, and so of course I grew up with megahertz. And hearing megacycles, I've heard it many times, particularly reading old amateur radio stuff, and it always struck me as wrong because it's not megacycles; it's megacycles per second. It's the difference between like kilowatts or kilowatt hours. And when people use that incorrectly, it always bugs me.
It's just it's just another Boolean algebra. Yeah, it's just, I mean, you can, just a different way of saying it, just different. So it was always understood the cycles per second. So.
Yes, it is understood to have the second, but hertz is more correct in that it explicitly states per second.
Hertz was just a guy's last name.
That's it. That's all it was. Heinrich.
Yes, Heinrich Hertz, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So that kilocycles is actually more accurate, but you gave the name to it. Same thing with volts
Mm-hmm.
and amps. They're people.
Actually, I have to agree with Joel on this because the definition of hertz is the kilocycles per second.
Mm-hmm.
The best one,
Per second.
if
Well,
I
per
remember,
second.
and if I remember correctly, the measurement of inductance was Mohs because it was ohms backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It's conductance, yes.
Conductance, yes.
Yes.
Inductance is Henry's.
Yeah, and Brian, just to slightly correct you here, hertz doesn't mean kilocycles per second; it just means cycles per second.
Yes, you are correct. I said it wrong. I realized it, and I thought I halfway corrected it when I said it, but I didn't quite get it out.
Yeah,
I heard you.
Then, of course, if Joel was around, we could have been calling it mega Epley.
Thankfully, we were all spared that indignity.
You've heard of grammar Nazis. I guess Joel is the measurement Nazi, but we'll take him. We'll still like him. It's nice to be correct every once in a while, though. It really is.
I like to be correct, especially technically correct, which is the best kind of correct.
I know
agree,
it's nice
Joel.
to be correct. My wife always tells me it is.
It would be nice to be correct every once in a while.
I'm correct sometimes, like when my wife agrees with me.
And how often is that?
Whenever she says it first.
I have to tell you, nothing hurt more than winning the grand prize on that aerial at the SBE reception and my wife saying, "Give it back." Of course, she made sense that shipping it was going to be too much and everything else and bringing it home, but it was the point of the matter.
Yeah.
And of course, we went to Vegas and she won at the slots. So that was that. All right. I got to run. Have a good day, gentlemen.
Bye, David.
Nice to talk to you, David. Have a great one. I think I'm going to get off here and let Barry get some rest too, because looks like Barry could use it actually.
Thank you.
Y'all have a good one.
The guy who doesn't correct this business is this cat here. Let's see how many channels we can get in each quad.
That looks like one of mine. Is he a talker?
Yeah. I'm gonna jump out and go mess around the attic upstairs. Oh, and Bob Jellison will do a tower presentation one of these weeks.
Well,
He's a tower.
I'm open to all sorts of good presentations.
Yep. Yeah, he was in on that lighting one we had about a week ago, and he said, "I like to come in and do a thing about the whole tower."
Mm-hmm.
That's I think.
Barry, did the guys at NBT say and give any kind of time frame?
It's on their website.
Okay. I guess I'll probably have to wait until the fall so that they can vacation in Florida again.
I don't know. They're going to fewer cities this year. So you'll have to check their website.
Hopefully I don't have another death in the family, so I miss it. It happened back in November when they were here. They were in Fort Myers and then they were in Tampa the next day. Fort Myers rained all day. And then I went up north the next day.
Well, I'm going to shove off, everybody. Thank you, Barry, for the meeting.
Well, thanks for being here.
I think this time around, I'm going to take my PC with me. It was just too hard to navigate with my iPad when I moved here. Terrible. Yeah, I'll just put this in the back of my SUV. All right. See you, everybody.
Take care. Or, okay. Take care.
That's it. Live long and prosper.
That's right.
There you go. That's a lot of people, though. How many days? 4 days? 3 days?
4.
4 days, 90,000 people?
61.
Oh, 61. Okay. Well, that's still a lot of people. Looks like it's probably futile, a futile effort for me to try to get out to Las Vegas to the NAB. But I'm still going to look forward to trying each time it comes around.
Well, I won't say it's my favorite destination. I won't even say it's close to my favorite destination.
Well, maybe Las Vegas will get too expensive for them, and they'll go on to other areas. Maybe come to Orlando.
Not enough exhibition space.
Is that really what it is, huh?
Yep.
Even with its
until they opened this West Hall, they actually had some down at the Sands, but they don't have enough room anywhere else. Dallas, New York.
Las Vegas is the only place that has room.
Mm-hmm. Same thing for CES.
But there was nothing really that stole the show, though, was there? The hype was that AI, and you said that really AI was kind of a bust.
Well, I think the question is this industry going to do much of anything from this point on?
I think people are always going to want. They're always going to want to watch and listen. So I don't think it's going anywhere. It's just how they do it. And that was where my question came in. That with the power consumption, and at what particular point will that shift? So.
I'm happy to revisit that discussion. So I've thought about it a bit more, and I was thinking about how with radio, there is a pretty hard floor in that your transmitters will never get to more than 100% efficiency. And so if it takes, that's going to depend a whole lot on your market. There are stations that I have where I'm getting, 100 listeners per watt, and other ones where I have 100 watts per simultaneous listener, depending on how urban or rural that is. Whereas there isn't going to be that much difference in the watts per listener for entirely IP-based audio distribution. In addition, while there's a fixed cost and power usage on over-the-air broadcast, if your transmitter is using 7.6 kilowatts, it's going to take 7.6 kilowatts, regardless whether there's nobody tuned in or a million. Whereas, of course, the power usage of IP stuff scales with however many listeners there are. But the difference is that over-the-air broadcast will never get more efficient than 100% on the transmitters, whereas networking hardware continues to get more and more efficient each year, so that now you can have 1 million listeners going through a single-digit number of watts on a single fiber transceiver. Now, of course, the internet consists of quite a lot of different fiber transceivers, but I think we are already at the point where, with modern network infrastructure, it takes less overall watts for people to be listening on a stream compared to over the air, except perhaps in the biggest cities, like markets 1, 2, 3, where it doesn't take that much power from obviously from Empire or from the Willis Tower or from Mount Wilson to cover millions and millions of people.
The killer, as we've talked about a number of times, is the royalties.
Oh, absolutely. And that is a very rough thing. I mean, it's also rough for us on the over-the-air broadcasting, in that I have stations that would be economically, very rural areas, that would be economically viable if they weren't for, well, a lot more economically viable if it weren't for music licensing fees, which they finally threw us a bone in this last cycle, where there's now a $0 to $25,000 listener, sorry, $0 to 25,000 listener tier for pricing, but it's what, like 10% less than the 250,000. It's when you have 20,000 people in your 60 dBu contour, what percentage of them listen and how much money can you get from them? It just doesn't make a lot of financial sense.
You mentioned something, you can't get more than 100%, that hard ceiling. Essentially, you can because of the efficiency of the antenna. You have a gain on that antenna. If you have a 100,000 watt station, you have a 10 bay, you got 19.6.
Yes, I in fact do have a 100,000 watt station on a 10 bay, and so I'm very familiar with that. It's just that you're going to hit some diminishing returns. I don't think anyone's using more than a 16 bay for broadcasting purposes. I think there was a 16 bay full wave in maybe the Cedar Rapids, Iowa market at one point. But overall, you're hitting some limits where it becomes, well, from the transmitter itself, you're not getting 100% efficiency. On the transmission system, of course, you can make improvements on gain. But we all know that going to a 64 bay FM antenna system is going to be just not practical.
Yeah, especially if you have any hills in the way.
Yes, I have had to reduce the bay count on antennas before because the short tower I had on the hill I wasn't able to build as tall a tower as I wanted to, and the radiation aperture of the antenna we already had taken possession of was greater than the height of the tower.
Couldn't jump over.
I decided not to build bays underground, which particularly would become even low to the ground. You get enough snowpack, and the antenna can get below the snow. That's you think icing is bad? Wait until the entire antenna is below in a snowbank.
Yeah, I've dealt with antenna icing. That's why I'm in Florida.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. Well, I've done the opposite. I used to live in East Texas, and that is why I now live in Maine.
I imagine we'll probably revisit this this question at some particular point, because streaming becomes more and more important to the younger generation.
Yes, and I really thank you for bringing that up as a topic. It's been a fascinating thing for me to think about.
Got to thank the 700 Club. They're the ones that did the report on that data center that got me to thinking.
I think this is the first time I have said thank you to the 700 Club.
I went on Google Earth to try to find that data center, but I wasn't able to locate it. They said 70% of the internet traffic in the world goes through that. I couldn't fathom that. My mind won't wrap. I can't wrap my head around that.
Well, it seems like we've reached that time.
I think we have.